It is okay to love your kids, but admit you need a break. Oh, 31 lessons in 31 days. 31 lessons that I learned over the last 2 years in 31 days. Man, this one. It is okay to love your kids and say you need a break. And you're still gonna be a good mom. Girl, okay, so this one I've gotten a lot better with, okay? Just bear with me. But so my oldest, I have two kids. My oldest is technically 11 and a half, as he will tell you. Um, my youngest turned 2 about 2 months ago. Yeah, about 2 months ago. So a pretty big age gap, but they're amazing kids. And I love being a boy mom. I love my kids. They absolutely, I see so much of myself and my family, their dad and his family in them, and it's just very, it's really cool to watch them grow up. But when my oldest was born, and again, he's 11 and a half, okay, so I'm 35. I was 24 when he actually popped out of my body. Um, about so that was a very interesting time in my life. And for a lot of different reasons, it ended up being me and him, even though his dad and I were together then, we're still together now. We are married. My husband is the father to both of my children. But because of between my husband's work schedule, he worked nights, I worked days. I worked at a nonprofit that worked with kids, so they allowed me to bring my oldest with me until he was old enough to go into daycare, things like that. So, and then some other things were going on. So, because of a lot of different reasons, it really was just me and him meaning my oldest kid. I mean, in the trenches, 24/7, 365, me and him, me and my kid. And I always felt like a burden to ask for help because the people that I would have asked for help, because I also had a lot of trust issues, still have a lot of trust issues, less than I did when I was 24, but still got trust issues. But I had a lot of trust issues because of just some things that happened in my past. So I was very particular about who had my kid. And I was very paranoid about if they were going to be treated right. So that coupled with the people that I did trust with my kid always being super busy, I always felt bad for asking for help, asking somebody to um, keep him for like an hour or something to that effect. Like I felt like if he went over somewhere, I needed to go over there because at the slightest even hint of what I thought was their annoyance with him or him being too much, that I would just take him and just go home because I don't want to inconvenience anybody with my kid. The gag is my oldest was such a calm baby. Like he rarely cried. He literally, truly was one of those kids that only cried when he was hungry, definitely, and then only sleepy sometimes. He could have a poopy diaper and would still just be laying there. um, and sometimes he would put himself to sleep at a very early age. And, you know, only sometimes if we were like out or doing something, because I did work a lot. So if we weren't home, like he would cry because he was sleepy, you know, things like that, or overstimulated, whatever. Or, and then of course, hungry. But an extremely calm child. I mean, extremely calm child. And looking back on it, I am just so thankful that God made him out to be that way because I was not in any mental capacity to deal with like and I'm getting off topic, but just so y'all can see, my 2-year-old is one of the most active kids I have ever encountered, and I've been working with kids since I was 14. I mean, he's not. I don't call my kids bad. I don't let other people call my kids bad. He's definitely mischievous. He's definitely curious, but that's normal for 2-year-olds. but he's just active. He always has to be moving. He always has to be moving. And I'm like, who, Jesus? Your mama's mental stability when she was 24, I would have been even more of a mess than I was if I had my youngest child then. And I'm just thankful and grateful that my oldest was the way he was. And so I said all that to say is like, I had no reason to be like, so like, oh my God, he's going to be in the way. And this was nothing against him. And I loved him dearly, and I still do. But I was just like, oh, he's going to be in the way. Oh, he needs too much. Oh, he needs too much. But that wasn't healthy. And it got to a point where people just assumed that I was overprotective, which I was and am, right? Again, I said that, you know, there's things that I went through that make me a very protective person. I don't consider myself a helicopter parent, especially now that I've worked through a lot of those issues. But people knew I was protective, and people would tell me later on, like years down the road, they're like, oh, we would have took him, but we didn't know if you would let us have him. Like, you know what I mean? And then some people just didn't ask, but that's a whole other topic for another day. But I felt bad. I was like, no, he's my responsibility. I'll just figure it out. I'll figure it out. That's always been my key phrase. I'll figure it out. And I always did. Even to the detriment of myself. If my son was happy, fed, and thriving, I was good. At least that's how I thought. But after years of doing that, after years of neglecting what I needed, I was like, oh, this is not okay. And as great of a kid as he was then and still is now, I still needed a break. Because having a child, parenthood, no matter how you come into it, is such a tax on your body, physically and mentally, that you still need a break. And I felt like I should be able to do this. I should be able to push through this. If I don't, then I'm failing as a mom, or I'm not a good mom. I don't know where I got that from. Maybe my childhood, I don't know. When we were young, we moved around a lot. We never lived by family, and never is kind of, it's like never. But the majority of the times that we moved because of my dad's job, and the majority of the times we moved, we did not move near our family. The closest we ever got to our family was a city we lived in called Bethlehem. It's in Pennsylvania, and we were going to Brooklyn every weekend, and that was still a drive, like hours. But that was still the closest that we were to the family at any given point. And so it was always just my siblings and my mom. My siblings, myself, and my mom. Because my dad traveled a lot for his job and things like that. And it was just always us. And because we moved so often, we did not and were not. And then like later on, you know, of course, because hindsight is 2020, I realized that my mom also did not have the opportunity, or at a certain point really want to cultivate these, you know, your village. Like you can cultivate your village wherever you are, but it's just like after a while we knew we were going to move between like a year and a half and 2 years. So it's just like, what's the point? And I know I'm generally speaking for everybody in the situation, but that absolutely was how I have felt. And I've heard my siblings voice this in various ways too, because it was just like, what's the point? We're getting ready to leave. You know, and then of course, hindsight 2020, I realized that my mom never really had any friends that were close to us, or, you know, actually like close to us emotionally or close to us physically. Cause like, what's the point? We're going to move. So it was like, when I was younger, it was me, my siblings, and my mom, and she did everything. And so maybe that's where I unconsciously learned it from. And I'm not mad at my mom for it, because she did what she had to do. You know, she did what she had to do. When my brother was in Lord, I don't know, maybe kindergarten, maybe first grade, maybe second grade. She went back to college. She got multiple master's degrees. And this is all still, my dad is traveling every week. We, we have us, there are some years of gaps in between my siblings and I. So, we're all at different stages of our education, in our extracurricular activities. This is, of course, before they started the church and things like that. So I seen her run us all to our practices. We were all still very involved in church even before my parents started their church. So still doing all of that stuff. I seen her go to school. She was a teacher for a very long time. I seen her do that, her lesson plans, all that stuff. Still raise us. I mean, I'm just like, so maybe unconsciously, I was like, you're not going to have any help. You need to figure out how to do this yourself. That's the only realistic explanation I can have. And again, I'm not mad at my mom. The three of us are still here. We are all healthy. We are all thriving. We're crazy. But I really think that really has a lot to do with our lineage. Because looking at my family now, I'm like, oh, all y'all, none of y'all are in your right minds, but it's okay. But we're all still here. We're all thriving. We're all healthy. We're all creating lives that we want. You know what I mean? So I guess I unconsciously was like, oh, I'm just going to have to do this by myself. And so the thought never occurred to me to really reach out. And I remember, like, I had horrible postpartum depression with my oldest. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And to the point where I was suicidal. And I don't think anybody knew. I didn't tell anybody. I know for a fact I didn't tell my husband. I think I told him like way after the fact, like, like years later, but in the moment, especially those first like 5 years, I never said anything to anybody. And the only thing that kept me going and kept me from following through on any of those thoughts was that, like, my kid won't have anybody. And while that's unrealistic, it was the only thing that kept me going and kept me alive. So whatever. And I'm not bashing my husband. He's a great dad, but he just worked a lot. And then he worked literal opposite shifts than I did. So I just ended up with our oldest. So all those unhealthy habits, all those unhealthy ways of thinking. And it wasn't until years later, when my son started, I think it was like 5, 6 years old, things like that. And, of course, other things happened too. Some people, anyway, I'm not going to get into it. I just had a lot of trust issues, okay? I just had a lot of trust issues. But, 6, 7 years old. And, wait, how old was he? Yeah, he was either 6 or 7, I think. My son went on a trip with my parents. And my dad just asked me, he was like, hey, we're going to such and such. Can he come with us? I was like, okay. I think it was like during the summer or something like that. I don't remember like having to call the school. So I think it was like during the summer or a break or something to that effect. I was like, okay. So I didn't have my kid for a little bit over a week because he was with my parents out of town. They weren't even in the state. And I was like, oh, this is a break. Right? I was like, oh, okay. All right. And I'm sure people took my kid before then. He has great grandparents on both sides, my side and my husband's side. So I'm not discrediting any of that. But for some reason, that specific instance really sticks out in my head. Because I think it was a time when I had like a really true break. Because even when we were with my husband's family, since they don't live near us, we've always had to travel. So I was still always there. Like I was there. Like I was physically there in the same like house with my kid, even though they would be taking care of him. And they do the same thing now, like now that I have 2 kids. But it's like I'm still in the house. So it's like I can still hear my kids. That's the thing. Like if I can hear my kids, my mom brain is on. Like for my mom brain to be off, I have to not hear my kids. um, so anyways, even though my in-laws are great and they're amazing, and there was even one time when Bubby, I don't know how old he was, but he went down and spent like a week with them. Um, so that was another time too. It was just like, oh, this is what a break is. Oh, this is fantastic. So I started trying to deal with my trust issues with other people having my kid and trusting, because it was like, no, I trust you with my kid. And I did, but it was like my own, I guess, trauma response from the things that had happened to me when I was younger, where it was like, I trust you with my kid, but I also don't trust you with my kid, but I don't trust you with my kid, not because I don't trust you, but because of my own trust issues. So once I started working through that and really finding people that really have an interest in my kid, and now my two kids, I've been able to let that go and find people to take care of them. And especially these last 2 years, like I said in another video, going through the personal, literal hell that I was going through, I relied on the people in my village that I've been able to cultivate for my kids that live near me. Because there's people that absolutely love my kids that do not live near me, but that doesn't help me when I need a break. like, like I just need you to take it for 2 hours so I can have a nap. But you live 18 hours away. That's great. But I just be thinking about conversations. It's okay though. But during when I was going through my horrible time these last 2 years, finding those people that really love my kids and having my kids go over there and having them have those other experiences and things like that have really been helpful. And I've also had to work through, just because somebody else keeps your kids for a couple of hours a day, a couple days a week, does not mean that you are abandoning your kids. You are still a great mom, but you're a great mom because you're doing this because you know that you need it, and you need it so that you can take care of yourself, and so that if you were taking care of yourself, you can be a better mom to your kids, right? And so that was like a whole domino effect that I had to work through and realize, because it was bad. Like I wouldn't even go get my nails done. Like I wear press-ons now. I need to redo my set. But it's like I would feel bad about going to a different part of the house just to have like an hour to do my nails. Like, oh, cause and they need to, and they're in front of the TV while I'm doing like none of that is gonna hurt them. You need a break, girl. So go get a break. So it's okay to admit that you need a break from your kids. Doesn't mean that you don't love them any less. Doesn't mean that you're abandoning them. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad mom. You just need a break. Because other than being a mom, I am still a human. I am not made to be on go 1,000%, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 366 on a leap year. I'm not made to do that. So I'm still a good mom. I'm a great mom. Still love my kids. But it's okay to admit that I need a break. And actually take the break. Actually take the break. That's what I learned.